Seoul Station's Necromancer Chapter 11, Roused Registration. Chapter 11 Roused Registration. TLN, just an FYI. My free time will be decreasing drastically starting today. I'll have to push translating novels to lower priority. I'll try to stick to the regular schedule. Also, since I have less time, sponsored chapter will probably take 2 days instead of 1. I hope you guys understand. Thanks Tilda. Woojin got off the bus, then he took out his phone to launch the map app. While it was loading, he saw a round bar rotating forever. He wondered how he should get rid of that damn phone salesman. After 30 seconds had passed, the map finally showed up. Woojin used the navigation function to head toward his destination. After searching for the destination, he had to wait a long minute before it started to give him directions. Roused General Affairs Bureau. Woojin came to the General Affairs Bureau to register himself as aroused. At the reception desk, Woojin wrote down his basic biological data and his ability. He took a receipt number, and after a brief time, he headed towards the examination room. The examination room had cameras everywhere, and 2 roused from the bureau was stationed there in case of any unforeseen event. Also, there was a public official sitting there to process the test results. Oh Junwan, who had returned to the General Affairs Bureau, looked over Kang Woojin's file. You have a summoning ability. Could you show it to me? Woojin answered his very businesslike questions. Right here. Woojin stood there blankly, so Junwan moved his gaze towards his monitor. Ah, have I met him before? It had been only 4 days since he had seen his face, but Woojin's outfit differed too much from his current outfit. Oh Junwan couldn't recognize him. I need a vector. Ah, you have a mass summoning ability. What kind of vector do you need? Give me 1 corpse. What? Of course, Junwan and the 2 roused from the bureau was taken aback. Woojin smirked as he added more words afterwards. I'm not talking about a human corpse. It could be a monster or even a dead animal. It needs to have bones. Ah, of course, human corpses are fine too. I understand. Even though Junwan was taken aback, he called the support division. Soon, the support division brought a corpse of a bunny, which had been killed during an experiment. He spread his hand towards the corpse placed in the middle of the examination room. Wake up. Parpak. The bunny's corpse exploded, and the skeleton soldier suddenly surged up. Keek keek keek. Junwan gulped as the skeleton soldier's producing a bizarre sound. He had seen all types of weird roused abilities, but this scene was a new one. However, Junwan was only a rank 9, so it was his first time seeing this. However, it wasn't as if there weren't any roused with such abilities. You are a necromancer. The roused were given various titles based on their abilities like magician, warrior or priest. Of course, there were necromancers, who controlled the undead. There were even some famous people amongst the necromancers. As you can see, summoner's ability is given a roused rank based on their summoned being's battle ability. Why don't you try attacking that? In the middle of the examination room, a hologram appeared, so Woojin looked around the examination room and knew. There were numerous equipment installed around the domed examination room, and it was projecting the hologram. Think of it as a simulated battle. I just want to see your summoned being's movement. The hologram was kobold, and it had a small body. It was a monster as common as the drabbit, but they were harder to hunt since they like to group together. Moreover, they behaved like a swarm. Keek keek. The skeleton soldier moved according to his will, and it started to fight the kobold. It didn't have a real body, so his bone knife passed right through it. However, the machines installed around the surrounding picked up all the movements as it took measurements. After 5 minutes had passed, Junwan told him to stop. Do you have any other abilities? Well, I don't have any other notable abilities. Yet. Wait a moment. Could you follow me? Junwan directed him to a break room. He said he'll only take a moment, but Junwan took an hour before he came back with a black card. It looked like a high-quality credit card, but it had his picture imprinted on it like his ID. This is your roused registration card. It can be used as an ID and a debit card. The card simply had his personal profile, and there was a rank F written on it. Is rank F really that low? It can't be considered high. No, it is the lowest. Summoner's battle abilities are weaker than expected. Of course. He hadn't put his points into the LVL-1 skeleton soldiers. They could only exert half the strength of an adult. Well, if one's rank is too low, is there a restriction on which dungeons you can enter? There is no such thing. However, the party is distributed based on your rank when you are forming a party. Quote. That wasn't a problem. He didn't want to form a party. He planned on using the dungeon by himself. Woojin could sever a steel bar with his bare hands, and he could simultaneously move 14 of his summoned beings. Therefore, he didn't make a fuss out of it. Excuse me. Have I seen you somewhere? At Oh Junwan's question, Woojin tilted his head in confusion. He didn't try hard to comb over his old memories. No, he thought it wasn't worth it. This is the first time. Have a nice day. Woojin immediately left the bureau, and Junwan scratched the back of his head. Ah, I know I've seen him somewhere. Still, he kept having an uncomfortable feeling. He was able to find the source of the discomfort only when Junwan returned to his seat. Ah. He was that guy from before. Guchun Station's first exit. On the first day he returned from his temp job, Junwan had been berated by his superior. The reason being he hadn't been vigilant in controlling the access to the dungeon. Junwan searched through his drawer, and he took out the access record to the Guchun Station's first exit. Name, Kang Woojin, affiliation, Planet Earth, rouse number, 12,345. When he saw the cheeky answer on the record again, his fist shook again. He's a rank F and not a high rank. Moreover, he is a noob, who just registered today. Geez. Junwan was berated by his superior, because of this bastard, and he had been in a huff for a while. Ah. He is only rank F, yet how did he clear it by himself? The Guchun Station's first exit had drabbats. They didn't drop any bloodstones, but it wasn't a dungeon where a F rank could clear it on his own. Geez. Junwan tilted his head, then he threw the file on the desk. He won't see him again, so why should he care? Asterisk. After leaving the bureau, Woojin took out his smartphone, then he opened the dungeon forum. He almost exploded from frustration when the loading screen took a while before the app started running. As he had learned from Jaemin, he set the search option to the entrance fee of 10,000 won. Then he selected a monster rank that was 2 ranks below his summoned monsters. This is the closest one. Woojin checked for a bus line that goes to Shinrum Station's 7th exit dungeon, then he waited at the bus station. Man, this app is quite convenient. In the past 5 years, the dungeons born from the train stations weren't the only thing new. In the past, only a few people had smartphones, but everyone had one now. Moreover, there were a lot of convenient apps that were helpful in real life. As he got closer to the Shinrum station, the building's height became lower, and the surrounding became desolate. The area around the station wasn't thriving with buildings. There were occasional vacant lots at the intersections, and he saw a really big parking lot. It looks like the dungeon break happened here at least once. If not, he had no explanation as to why the perfectly fine buildings were shuttered. There wouldn't be any empty lots present. When he previously headed toward the first exit, there were army troops already deployed there. His current destination, the 7th exit, had a crowd of people in front of it. Woojin had come here after reading a famous blog. It seemed many netizens had rushed over here. He shook his head when he saw the long line. I hadn't thought about this. The low entrance fee, and the 2 rank below monsters meant the risk was small, but the competition to make money at the mine was fierce. Woojin had no choice but to get in line. Everyone was gathered in small groups, so it seemed like they were working together. This was when a man with sharp features spoke to him from further in front of the line. Seoul Station's Necromancer Chapter 12, Roused Registration, 2. TLN, 2nd chapter of the week. I'll have another Elqueenus out in a day or two to clear the queue. Next week chapters will be Dragon, Legend Tilda. Please turn off the ad blocks if you can. Thank you Tilda. Hey, bro. You look to be alone, so why don't you join our party? We've gathered exactly 7 people here, so there is 1 spot left. Ah, it's okay. I'll enter alone. The man was taken aback by Woojin's refusal. Why would you want to waste your entrance fee by entering by yourself? Since there is a time limit, there is a limit on how many bloodstones you can mine. The man laughed when he saw Woojin's confused expression. I guess you haven't been a miner for long. The roused were called by slang. The people, who specialized in challenging the unconquered dungeons, were called rangers. Those, who mined the bloodstones, in the safe and conquered dungeons were called miners. The roused, who were mobilized to fight the monsters with the military during the dungeon break, were called guardians. They were called these names based on their occupation. However, a ranger could become a miner, and a miner could become a guardian. As if the man thought Woojin was a noob, he started going over the rules for a miner in broad terms. There was a cap on how many people could enter the dungeon. When rangers decide to attack a dungeon, they make their teams based on the head count. These people were called the attack squads. The 3 great guilds of Korea were famous for having competent attack squads. It was the same for the miners. Miners could only be admitted up to the maximum number. The attack squad sent in the maximum number of people to send in the best fighting poe, and the miners did it to increase their efficiency. The entrance fee was also calculated based on the maximum number of people able to enter the dungeon. The maximum number of people able to enter the Shinrum Station's 7th exit was 8 people. So, if I want to use it alone, then I'll have to pay the fee of 8 people. 800,000 won. Yes. Moreover, it is an hourly fee. Even though only the basic monsters were summoned in the dungeon, it was still dangerous. The information about the dungeon had already been released to the public, so the danger to a miner's life was lessened. However, they were still putting their life on the line. The return stones could only be found in the deepest part of most dungeons. It was impossible for one person to clear it in 1 hour. If one went over the time limit, the entrance fee doubled. If I want to use the dungeon for 2 hours alone, then I need an entrance fee of 1,600,000 won. If he took out all the monsters, then he'll probably make decent money. However, a roused with that much ability wouldn't even enter a mere 2-star dungeon. What is your rank? It's rank F. TSK. You came here without knowing anything, but you were in luck. Join our party as a learning experience. We'll guarantee your safety. Alright. Woojin was able to take care of his own safety, but he joined the party without any fuss. It was purely based on the fact that he didn't have the entrance fee. I'll have to level up fast, so I can attack a dungeon in peace. There were too many constraints and fees. It seemed Woojin's temperament was incompatible with mining. He was disappointed, but he decided to experience mining for a day with these people. Groups of 8 members were entering the dungeon, so the waiting line grew shorter pretty fast. They were all roused, but they all held low ranks. The people gathered here were quite diverse. The difficulty level wasn't very high, so the parties in front of them were all able to clear the dungeon in 40 to 50 minutes. The man, who introduced himself as Dosu, was a rank E user. He was a professional miner, who traveled with 6 teammates to gain profits from the mines. Usually, they only visited 1-star mines, but they decided to attempt a 2-star mine this time around. Since this will be their first attempt, they wanted to fill the 8 slots. 8 people were better than 6 people. Kang Woojin and a roused named Hong Sunggu had come to the dungeon by themselves, so they joined Dosu's team. Hong Sunggu was a new roused and he was rank F like Woojin. Well, everyone except me is rank F, therefore, my share will be 2, and everyone else will be 1. We'll gather all the bloodstones, then we'll divide into 9 portions at the end. Woojin didn't have much to say. He agreed to Dosu's words. He was challenging a mine just to have the experience. Phew, I'm shaking. How about you? From the start, Hong Sunggu had a hard time getting along with Dosu's group, so he tried to act friendly towards Woojin, while they waited in line. Woojin replied back in a sufficient manner, so they talked about various topics. Hong Sunggu was a rank F noob, but he was very interested in the dungeons. He possessed a vast array of knowledge. Woojin's conversation with him was quite beneficial. Hong Sunggu was 21 years old, and he had become aroused only 2 months ago. He had quit going to school, and he had started his roused activity in earnest. He had been going to 1-star mines for the past 2 months, and he felt he had gotten used to the mines. This was the first time he was attempting a 2-star mine. Money wasn't his ultimate goal. His goal was to strengthen and train his roused abilities. His dream was to join a ranger's team to attempt an unconquered dungeon. He wanted to join the attack squad. Even if one is afraid, men aren't supposed to show it. Haha. Big brother is quite confident. The queue time lasted several hours, so they talked a lot. Eventually, they decided to call each other big bro and little bro. Okay. Let's start getting ready to enter. The barrier around the dungeon let out a green light, and it started to fade. Woojin tilted head in curiosity as he saw the team in front of him exit. It seems there was an accident. As the experienced Dosu had predicted, the team in front of them had 4 casualties. The public employees and officials dispatched from the dungeon management agency ran towards them to investigate the situation. They were waiting right behind them, so Woojin was able to hear their words clearly. A hobgoblin showed up. How is that possible? The dispatched public employee showed entrance log to the argumentative roused. Didn't you read this? You even signed here. The basic monsters summoned inside the dungeon may vary from information given. The burden of responsibility regarding this is placed on the roused. The 4 surviving Roshud, who had lost their team, was very animated, but they had no way of receiving a compensation. Being a miner wasn't a safe job. TSK. It is useless to argue like that. They're just wasting their energy. It seemed they had left their party members' corpses behind, and they were only able to run away after securing the return stone. Since they weren't able to secure any bloodstones, they had only incurred losses in this dungeon. As expected of a veteran miner, Dosu had experienced a lot of these situations. Dosu looked away from the argument, then he spoke to his teammates. Hobgoblins are 2-star monsters. If we are well prepared, there is no reason why we wouldn't be able to fight against it. No, those bastards most definitely drop bloodstones, so it should be better for us. Quote. According to Dosu's words, he had never hunted a hobgoblin before, but he had the experience of clearing over 200 instances of 1-star mine. The 8 party members briefly signed their names in the dungeon entrance log, then they started heading down the subway station stairway. Okay. Let's enter. After Dosu's encouragement, they descended the stairs and they approached a tunnel. A white barrier started forming when they entered. You have entered the Shinrim Station's 7th exit. This dungeon has already been conquered. Basic monsters will be summoned. Seoul Station's Necromancer Chapter 13, Shinrim Station's 7th exit. Chapter 13 Shinrim Station's 7th exit. TLN, I finished translating this a little bit early. It'll count toward next week's regular chapters. I'll try to have Elquinus out by Monday. Please turn off ad blockers if you're able to. Thanks. Woojin discreetly asked Sunggu a question. Hey, do you hear that sound? Yes. What kind of sound? The sound of the wind. Yes. The wind is blowing pretty hard. He guessed only he could hear it. Woojin was closely related to the dungeons and the Alphan planet. So he realized this was limited only to him. Okay. Let's get into position. At Dosu's words, 4 team members stepped forward. The 4 of them were all short-ranged fighters, so they carried some pretty sturdy shields. Dosu and the other teammates positioned themselves behind the 4. Dosu was aroused with an ignition ability, and the other person had a bow. Basically, the formation was a combination of 4 short-ranged fighters and 2 long-ranged fighters. Well, the 2 of you are new to this, so please position yourselves in the rear. Let's try to be in sync. If we turn upcoming corner, 4 normal goblins will be summoned. This was the first time Bei Dosu attempted a 2-star dungeon, but it seemed he had studied this place thoroughly. He knew this place like the content of a manual. Geek. When they turned the corner, 4 goblins rushed towards them. Goblins were small monsters with hideous faces, and they swung short clubs. Tang, tang. The clubs were blocked by the shields, so it didn't do much damage. This was when Bei Dosu's ignition ability shone. Waru Rook. The flame suddenly sparked in front of their faces. The goblins lost their sight, and they became disorganized. At that moment, the closed combat fighters raised their weapons, then they stepped forward. SSSSSKUK, puck. They mercilessly cut down the fallen goblins with their weapons. One goblin tried to run away when an arrow appeared like a ghost. It flew and embedded itself in the goblin's head. Sweek. It wasn't shot like an Olympic archer, but the archer was still a member of the roused even if he was rank F. It was an attack that would sufficiently threaten a monster. They cut off the head of the goblin, who had become a bloody mess. Woojin and Sungu watched silently from the side. Woojin had seen more gruesome sights, so it didn't bother him. Hong Sungu was also experienced from the 1-star dungeons, so he just frowned. He didn't disgrace himself by doing something like dry heaving. We are lucky. There are 2 bloodstones. If it's only this size, then we'll at least be able to receive 20. Woojin was surprised at Bei Dosu's words. The bloodstones were smaller than the size of a finger, yet they were valued at 20. He thought he had done the right thing to come to this dungeon even though he was risking his life. I guess 100,000 won isn't too expensive. Until a moment ago, it was a burdensome amount of money, but now it was laughable. Okay. Let's fight together at the next corner. What's your ability again? I can summon a fireball. After I throw one, I can throw another one after 3 seconds. I can throw 6 in succession. Okay. How about you? Bei Dosu's gaze touched Woojin. Woojin looked around his surrounding, then he raised his hand towards a goblin's corpse. Ku-UK. Kekekik. A single skeleton soldier showed up. Everyone was surprised, so they looked towards Woojin once again. Haha. You are a summoner type. Well, do you have another ability? Woojin picked up the club dropped by a goblin, then he started swinging it through the air. Well, I have enough power to keep myself safe. The party was too busy looking at the skeleton soldier. This is the first time I've seen a necromancer. Whoa. This is amazing. I think it'll be great for searching or reconnaissance. While everyone was admiring it, Bei Dosu decided on the positions. We'll keep the same positions, but Woojin's summon being can act as a scout. Mr. Hongu will let a fireball fly when I give him a signal. Woojin, while carefully turning the corner, opened his skill window. Then he increased the summoned skeleton soldier's skill. Less than LV9 skeleton soldier summoned greater than. The monster's corpse was given as sacrifice, and a skeleton soldier of strength 14, agility 17, health 14 was summoned. Magic consumption 1, required control 1. He used 8 points to increase its skill level. The skeleton soldier's ability was increased in one sitting, and it was capable of exhibiting a powerful combat capability greater than a fully grown male. When the skill level reached 10, the skeleton soldier's appearance goes through a change, so he only raised it to LVL9. It would be annoying for him to explain the changed appearance. It should be able to pull its own weight. Woojin decided not to do too much. He'd just make a decent amount of money. He wanted to attempt the dungeon by himself when he had enough money. The next corner will have 6 goblins. At Bei Dosu's direction, the skeleton soldier drew the gaze of the enemies from the front, then the close combat fighters built a strong shield wall. Sungu's fireball was surprisingly effective. HWA Ru Rook. Boom. The goblins' formation collapsed when the head-sized fireball flew towards them. Bei Dosu's ignition ability can directly cause damage, but it was good at creating a tactical advantage. The spark of flame would suddenly form in front of a goblin's face. While the surprised goblins were flailing about, the close combat fighters would run in and beat up the goblins. Woojin also participated as he used the skeleton to kill the goblins. The pile of bones is faster than I had expected. It is also powerful. Isn't it better than most F ranks? Bei Dosu's team acknowledged Woojin and Sungu. As the battle continued, they became more in sync, so the hunting speed increased. At first, their goal was not to clear the dungeon. They had decided to kill all the summoned monsters to extract the bloodstones, then exit the dungeon. They didn't take the shortest route to the return stone located in the lowest floor. They hunted everything as they descended. They caught a good number of monsters, so Woojin leveled up once as he became LVL5. The goblins also gave more achievement points compared to the drabbits, so every kill gave him 2 points. Woojin used the skeleton soldier, so he didn't have much to do. The original team had grown experience together in the 1-star dungeons, so they worked harmoniously. Since this was a 2-star dungeon, Bei Dosu was initially very cautious, but he was slowly gaining confidence. The drop rate of the bloodstones can be compared to the 1-star dungeons. They have already acquired 17 bloodstones. The bloodstones came in various sizes, but if they exchanged it to money, they'll receive around 400 at the very least. If they split it between the party members, each member would receive money of over 100. Of course, this was only counting the bloodstones they currently have. They still had more monsters to kill, so they'll make more money in the end. The 2-star dungeon is a jackpot. Of course, the original team was taking an active role, but the danger level was decreased by Wu Jin's skeleton soldier taking the brunt of the attack. Moreover, the battles were also helped by Sunggu's fireball. They had pretty good powers, so teams would probably covet after these outstanding individuals. Even Bei Dosu thought about giving him an offer when the dungeon attack was finished. This is the last floor. Let's all work hard. They had to clear the dungeon and exit within an hour, so the break time was short. The party was in a hallway and they were about to step onto the stairs leading to the last floor. There were 5 goblins and 1 hobgoblin standing at the entrance. One was much larger than the others, and it was holding onto a very large cane. Let's go forward in our basic formation. Wu Jin turned his head in confusion at Bei Dosu's confident words. He had fought the Demon Lord's army at the planet Alphen. He had crossed path with countless number of monster, and it included the hobgoblins. This bastard was very troublesome compared to the normal goblins. It wasn't because its larger body. The bastard had the highest intellect amongst the goblins. It was a goblin magician. Moreover, I don't think this was successful. Wu Jin clicked his tongue as he saw his teammates inch forward. Shouldn't we be a little bit more careful? Bei Dosu nodded his head at Wu Jin's word. Still, his face was filled with confidence. His continuous victories made him forget the fact that he was attempting a 2-star dungeon for the first time. I'm well acquainted with the manual. That bastard's main attack is magic. Zhongshul's ability can be used to create a barrier. He can delay it by blocking it once, then we'll rush in for a decisive victory. One of the shield carriers had an ability to make a barrier. Wu Jin shrugged his shoulder, and he decided to follow his lead. Bei Dosu was the team leader, and he was just a hanger-on. Of course, the team leader also held all the responsibility. It's coming. Block it. At Bei Dosu's word, the man named Zhongshul activated his ability. A grey barrier spread out, and it collided with the lightning. Pa Ji Jeek. As the barrier disappeared, the lightning also disappeared. Alright. Let's go. Bei Dosu immediately used his ignition ability, and he messed with the hobgoblin's field of vision. Then the party members charged. Even Sunggu threw a fireball towards the hobgoblin. It should still be dangerous. Hobgoblins had very high intelligence. It was high enough for them to cast magic. Moreover, magic wasn't the only reason why hobgoblins were dangerous. Geek. The hobgoblin let out a bizarre sound, and the goblins nearby bunched together. The goblins had crude shields attached to the hand grasping their clubs. They had dismantled signs, newspaper stands and various items to make makeshift shields. Then they pulled out pipes that was hidden within their body, and they took aim. Attack. We just have to kill the hobgoblin first. At Bei Dosu's words, the archer aimed and fired at the hobgoblin. However, the bastard had already hidden its body behind the stairs balustrade. Moreover, the goblins should be in disarray from the fireball, yet the goblins stood in formation as they fortified their line of shields. The goblins and the team collided with each other. I think something is different about these bastards. The bastards, who they were grappling with, had the same body and strength as the previous goblins. However, the difference was they were fighting in a shrew manner. The party felt a strange sense of danger, and the battle was basically shifting against them. Pew pew puke. The goblins, who were hiding, shot the unique weapon, paralysis needles. Some even used poisoned needles. Ah, it stings. What is this? Ah, my body. Their bodies weren't entirely paralyzed, but the region hit by the paralysis needle became rigid. Even if it lasted only for a moment, it became a huge source of danger where weapons were swung indiscriminately in battle. Ku UK. Ah! One person fell over after being hit by the club swung by a goblin. As if his heart was being strangled, Bei Dosu felt a feeling of suffocation. The bastards, who should be dead from one swing of his sword, was responding in an organized manner. It was very troublesome to fight against them. TSK, this is why I knew they would fail. Hobgoblins were dangerous not because of their physical ability nor their magic. They were able to command other goblins with their superior intellect. The goblins stopped being a 1-star monster when they obtained a commander. The whole group should be looked at as a single entity. Escape. Get out of there. Bei Dosu yelled from the rear, and the close combat fighters fought each other to be the first to run away. However, it was after one had completely lost his consciousness. If they continued to run away, the person would inevitably die. HWA Ru Rook, Puing. After the cool time had ended, Sunggu threw a fireball towards the goblins, who were chasing after them. 2 goblins quickly retreated as they were set on fire. The close combat fighters used this time to quickly retreat. I don't think we can do this. Let's retreat first. What about Zhongshul? He's already dead. Can't you see it? At Bei Dosu's indignant shout, their faces became rigid. They felt sorry for their comrade. Moreover, they also felt fear and the desire to live, so their expressions was extremely gloomy. Even if they thought about it, their decision was obvious. Nothing was more precious than their own lives. Retreat. At Bei Dosu's shout, the party members quickly ran away. Still, it wasn't as if the band of goblins did nothing. Pa Ji Jeek. The hobgoblin regained its senses. It let out a lightning strike, and it directly hit Sunggu's body. He couldn't even let out a scream. Sunggu's eyes flipped over as his mouth stayed wide open. Chet, hurry up and run away. Sunggu wasn't even part of their original team, so they didn't feel sorry for him. The roused were basically beings hiding within death's shadow when they decide to enter a dungeon. He was just unlucky. Keek. The goblins feigned chasing after them, but after a while, they returned to the hobgoblin's side. Woojin, who was hiding behind a pillar, revealed himself. It's been a while since I hunted a group. There were 2 casualties, and the rest ran away. Woojin laughed as he looked at the bunch of goblins. He had enjoyed being a spectator, but that had come to an end. Seoul Station's Necromancer Chapter 14, Dungeons Necromancer. TLN, thank you for the donations Colby and Lex. Here is a sponsored chapter. Please turn off ad blockers if you're able to thank you and enjoy. Okay. Let's go, my minions. PAHK. At Woojin's call, the 4 corpses of the goblin exploded, and the skeleton soldiers were summoned. Jijik. Kikiki. The goblins yelled like surprised monkeys, and the skeleton soldiers' unique playful sound was also heard. In the middle, Woojin threw away his light club, then he took out the claw hammer from his inventory. The hammer had enough weight and destructive ability for his purpose. Until he could acquire a proper weapon, he had no choice but to store it in his inventory for later use. Well, let's do this. Woojin started running, and the skeleton soldiers ran forward to open a path for the general. The skeleton soldiers pressed into the goblins. The hobgoblin was taken aback, and it started to give out a hurried command. The goblins tried to cut off Woojin, but their heads exploded from the claw hammer. Kikiki. As soon goblins became dead corpses, skeleton soldiers exploded forth from them. Woojin had used a decent amount of skill points, so the skeleton soldiers could exhibit physical strength comparable to a low-ranked roused. Moreover, they weren't easily killed. In a flash, he had 14 creatures, which was the limit of his control. Woojin held up the claw hammer, which was soaked in goblin's blood, towards the shocked hobgoblin. The bastard's cane was letting out a crackling sound, and one could see electricity coalesce at the end. His electric attack's cooltime had probably ended. Woojin used the sharp end of the claw hammer to ram it into hobgoblin's head. Qua Jahk. Pass HH. It pierced through the hobgoblin's skull, and the electricity charged at the end of the cane dissipated before it could be shot. Phew. This is great for gathering points. It's best to hunt a group of monsters. Each goblin gave him 2 achievement points. The hobgoblin gave an astounding 5 points. This was only a 2-star dungeon, so he could only guess how many points he could get at a high-tiered dungeon. He thought about the magic scrolls being sold in his point store. It seemed it was only a matter of time before he was restored to the heights he had reached at the Alphan planet. The express was also pretty good, so he leveled up once. Party play doesn't suit my style. He had skeleton soldiers, who could tank in front of him, so he just needed an attack he could deal damage from the back. He'll be able to learn the skills once he leveled up a little bit more. He had passively participated in the party play, so the number of monsters Woojin attacked was low. It slowed him down from earning EXP and achievement points. Woojin activated his search magic as he looked at the fallen goblins. He didn't have to go through the hassle of searching all the goblin corpses to find the bloodstones. The siege magic illuminated any items that possessed mana. Woojin saw a light leaking out of the fallen hobgoblin's possession, so he searched through it. Ah! It's a magic scroll. Woojin looked at the magic scroll, but he had no way of knowing what kind of magic it was. I have to learn identification magic anyways. I'll just use this as an opportunity to buy it. Woojin pulled up his point store, then he used 20 achievement points to learn the identification magic. He could use 1-star disposable item called Identification Scroll, but he decided to learn how to use this magic. There was no downside since he would be using this magic often. Less than identification greater than. The hidden information of the item will be known to you. The failure rate decreases as your intelligence increases. Magic consumption, 1. As soon as Woojin learned the magic, he casted identification on the magic scroll. Less than electric shock greater than. An electric attack can be sent towards a target. Magic consumption, 1 latency time, 20. Ho! This is what the bastard was using. Woojin searched through his point store, and he found the price of the electric shock scroll. It was priced at 100 achievement points. With 30 points, he could buy low-ranked elemental magic where he could create a flame or produce water. The electric attack was more useful as an attack magic, so he understood why it was 3 times more expensive than the others. It's still a middling price. He could earn the points if he defeat 50 goblins. If he thought about how fast he dispatched the goblins, it didn't look to be that expensive. However, if he was to buy it, he thought it wasn't cheap either. It wasn't something he needed right now, so he put the magic scroll away. Then he excavated the bloodstones from the goblins' heads as it continued to emit a light. Ooh. Ha! Woojin, who was excavating the bloodstones, looked around his surrounding when he heard the moan. His face had stiffened, but no monster had appeared. Woojin was alert as he looked around, and his eyes met Sungu's pain-filled eyes. His eyes were moving up and down in agony. It seemed he had regained consciousness. His face was grimacing as if he was still in pain. Woojin approached him, and he squatted down next to him. It seemed effects of the electric shocks hadn't disappeared yet. Sungu forced words out with his stiff tongue. Help em. How much did you see? Woojin cut off Sunggu as he asked a question. Sunggu looked up with a pleading expression, but Woojin's face was indifferent. Woojin has seen countless number of people die. This included comrades and enemies he had met. Moreover, he had also seen innocent fallen souls being stolen. Ah, I don't care. This was an Alphan planet. He didn't really need to kill Sunggu. He wasn't a spy from a hostile country, so silencing him wasn't a necessity. Please save me. He was slowly gaining control of his Tonyu, so Sunggu's words became clearer. Sunggu was someone who had the ability to make fireballs. He was someone who dealt in magic, so he was somewhat resistant to magic. If he was a civilian and not aroused, he would already be dead. However, if he was left here, then he'll surely be killed by the monsters downstairs. What will you do for me if I save you? I'll keep my mouth shut. About what? The fact that Big Brother is a rank D roused. Woojin smirked at Sunggu's words. It seemed one had to be a rank D roused to easily defeat a hobgoblin and a couple dozen goblins. Still, he didn't really care if his story was spread. Woojin wasn't interested in such things. How much are you willing to give me? What? Is this how one felt when one couldn't say anything from being too flustered? Hong Songgu didn't know how he should answer the question, so he hesitated. If I leave you here, then you'll probably become like him. Woojin pointed towards the bloody corpse of Junshul. He had been beaten by the Goblins Club in numerous locations, so he was a gruesome sight to behold. I'll give it to you. If he could live, then how could the money be a problem? He'll take out his entire savings if he was able to live. Money was something he could earn more as he increased in the roused ranks. How much do you want? At Sunggu's word, Woojin unfurled 2 fingers. Sunggu was surprised, and he gritted his teeth. If it's 2,000 then it is well worth my life. TLN, 2. Around $18,000. He'd be spending all the money he had saved, but it didn't matter. He had just started his life as aroused, so he'll make much more in the future. I understand. Woojin smiled in satisfaction at Sunggu's reply. If it's 200 then I'll have enough entrance fee for solo play. TLN, $1,800. This was his 3rd day back. Roused Kang Woojin was still naive. Seoul Station's Necromancer Chapter 15, What Goes Around Comes Around. Chapter 15 What Goes Around Comes Around. TLN, I decided to release a 3rd regular chapter this week. I had some extra time, and I wanted to somewhat wrap up this dungeon part. Please turn off the ad blockers if you're able to. Thanks Tilda. Phew, it's done. Sunggu wiped the sweat off his ghastly face. The last floor was a very large space, and there had been enough monster to fill up the whole floor. Of course, Sunggu wasn't sweating, because he had participated in the battles. Did you excavate it all? At Woojin's words, Sunggu brought the pile of bloodstones to him. How can someone like Big Brother be rank F? At the very least, you should be rank D since you have a lot of abilities, you could even receive rank C. I'll get it later. Sunggu looked at Woojin, who spoke indifferently, as if he was seeing a monster. The monsters on the last floor of the dungeon was wiped out by Woojin and his summoned beings. Sunggu was assigned the role of excavating bloodstone from the monsters Woojin pointed out. He basically did the clean-up work. Woojin had the ability to hunt 1-star and 2-star monsters by himself. His battle ability was close to a rank D, and he wouldn't fall short against a rank C in terms of versatility. He was able to summon the skeletons, and he could search for the bloodstones. Moreover, he was able to extract some grey energy from the dead monsters' corpses, and he was able to use it to heal himself. Isn't there a saying that says a sandalwood is fragrant even in seed leaf? TLN, idiom used to describe genius who display their abilities even in childhood. Sunggu looked at this person, who had finished his roused registration only 3 hours ago. He believed this noob roused Kang Woojin will become someone to be reckoned with. What are you doing? You are going to learn it instead of selling it. Yeah, why? Woojin inserted his magic into the magical scroll he held in his hand. As the magic scroll disappeared, he absorbed the magic, electric shock. He had to save his achievement points since he had a lot of skills to learn. Therefore, he decided to learn the magic, electric shock, since he already possessed the magic scroll. Even if he wanted to learn a more higher-ranked magic, he could only learn from magic scrolls related to the Necromancer class. Still, electric shock would be useful when attacking a person. There was no downside in learning it. Hull. You already have a lot of ability yet you're learning more magic, Big Brother. If you had sold it, you could have sold it for 100 million won. TLN, 100 million won or $89,306. Quote. At Hong Songgu's words, Woojin's face became rigid. A 100-point magic scroll was worth 100 million. It was that expensive. Of course. It allows you to gain an additional ability. It is qualitatively different from an artifact. Magical energy had to be injected into an artifact for it to activate its imbued magic. On the other hand, Magic Scroll allowed a rouse to learn the magic. With a Magic Scroll, one didn't have to worry about losing it, and even a low-ranked Magic Scroll could be used for research. Of course, it would be expensive. Why would such an expensive item drop in a mere 2-star dungeon? I'm not sure. You must be really lucky. It isn't like it never happens. It just doesn't show up that often. So what kind of magic was it? It's the one you got hit with. It's the electric shock that was used by the hobgoblin. Hull. You would have at the very least gotten 100 million. 100 million. It was 100 million. Phew. If he knew the magic scroll was worth 100 million, then he would have just used 100 points to learn the electric shock. He wanted to buy the magic scroll from the achievement store to sell, but the skill books purchased from the point store can be used in a transaction. Only Woojin could learn it. Woojin had learned Soul Extract to restore the barely alive Sungu. It cost him 50 points, but he didn't hesitate since he had to learn it anyway. After a monster or a person dies, their souls remain next to the corpses for a brief moment. At that moment, he could extract the souls, then he could use it as a source of energy. Whether it was magic, vitality or stamina, a small portion of it could be recovered. When Woojin injected it into someone else, the efficacy decreased. Sungu thought Woojin was using healing magic, but the truth was different. Woojin was stealing the life force of others to share with him. SS's soup, phew. Let's not worry about the cost. Woojin tried to soothe his aching innards. If he had sold the magic scroll, then he wouldn't have to traverse a dungeon for a long while. No, if he thought about the fallen real estate value in Seoul, he could have moved into a huge villa that was much bigger than the current one room. Let's not think about it. How much can I get with this much bloodstones? At the very least, you could get around 800. I think you can get more. I'm not too sure. He had invested 100,000 won, so he made a good amount of profit. If his party members hadn't run away, we would have only received 1 million won for his cut. It's all mine. Of course. How about the return stone? I have it here. Then let's go. Woojin and Sungu swept the bloodstones into the bag, and they were about to head upstairs. It looks like an ambush. He only had a low-level detection skill, but he could feel a faint sense of murderous intent. Woojin gave Sungu a warning. When Woojin came to a stop, Sungu's expression also turned serious. They had killed all the monsters. Unless they re-entered the Dugnion, the monsters won't regenerate. If there was an ambush, then it had to be Bei Dosu's party. Are they trying to PK? Woojin questioned Sungu, whose voice was shaking from worry. Does this happen often? It happens occasionally. It probably happens more off the record. This is why people don't party up with a group they don't know. The Hell's Gate is opened when a treasure like magic scroll and artifact is found. Quote. If there is a fight, how is it handled? No one will know what had happened inside the dungeon. It is an written rule that they'll only act when there is indisputable evidence. Then it's an easy way to dispose of a dead body. Woojin grinned and he looked up into the dark stairway. He stopped walking, then he looked back. There were monster corpses lying everywhere. Woojin took several steps back as he distanced himself from the stairway. Sungu also followed Woojin's action. Hey, stop hiding there like a rat. Why don't you come out? Soon, there was a response from Woojin's words. Bei Dosu's party slowly stepped onto the stairs. One had an awkward expression, and another seemed to be apologetic. The rest had a no-nonsense attitude. What happened? Did you defeat them all? Bei Dosu put on a performance as he slyly asked a question. Woojin spoke in a low voice towards Sungu. I'm planning on taking him by surprise when he gets close. What should I do? Sungu looked at Woojin with worried eyes. Woojin shrugged his shoulders. You bastards ran away, yet you have had the gall to show up again. Why are you here when you should be waiting in front of the barrier? The sudden disrespectful words spat out by Woojin made Bei Dosu's eyebrows twitch, but he laughed awkwardly as he tried to keep his expression in control. Ha. Why are you being like this? Aren't we on the same team? We just made a tactical retreat, and we came back to clear the dungeon. When we arrived, it seemed all the monsters were killed. How did you do it? Bei Dosu's thoughts were in a complete state of confusion. Two F-ranked roused were able to clear all the monsters, so he couldn't believe what had happened. Bei Dosu secretly looked towards the bag filled with bloodstones. Woojin laughed. Those who were blinded by greed couldn't see what was right in front of their eyes. Stop fucking around. You just wanted to take the return stone, but now you are covetous of a ready-made meal. Woojin threw the bag filled with bloodstones in front of him. Kwa-ru-ruk. Bloodstones spilled out from the bag's opening. It was thrown about the midway point between Woojin and Bei Dosu's party. Try taking it if you covet it. At Woojin's words, Bei Dosu's expression stiffened. It seems you are mistaken. Do you think we will try to PK someone who had defeated a monster we can kill? It is a misunderstanding. We aren't that stupid. Go on. I'm sorry for not looking out for you. However, my life was on the line, so what could I do? We just came back to look for the return stone. Since you cleared the dungeon, we were fortunate enough to be able to retrieve Zhongchul's corpse. Therefore, I am very thankful. At Bei Dosu's words, Woojin felt that he had been too sensitive. Yes, the people here weren't at all like those from the Alphan planet. Maybe they were hiding themselves on top of the staircase in case they ran into a monster. From their perspective, they had no idea of what was going on at the bottom floor. Maybe I'm being too sensitive. For the past 20 years, he had lived in a location where people betrayed each other for a fistful of money. This is why he was always on edge. However, this was Earth. This place was Seoul. It is a place where peace and moral was alive. Hwa-ru-ru-ruk. My ass. Woojin hurriedly waved his arm through the flame that ignited in front of his eyes. Right now. At Bei Dosu's shout, the man with the bow shot an arrow toward Hong Sung-gu. His fireball attack was an ability they had to get rid of first. After Bei Dosu ran away, he had come to an agreement with his party. They weren't skilled enough to attempt a 2-star dungeon. The money wasn't that great, but they had decided to return to the 1-star dungeons. They returned to carefully look for the return stone, but all the monsters were dead. Even the hobgoblin was dead, and this made his head spin. Greed grew in him. No matter how hard they searched, they could only find Jungchul's corpse. Woojin and Sung-gu's corpses were missing. This meant the two of them had conquered the bottom floor by themselves. If they were able to defeat the hobgoblin, this meant one of them was hiding his real capability. This is why they had prepared an ambush, but their opponents saw through it first. Bei Dosu tried to put Woojin at ease. At the same time, he tried to assess the situation. He tried to determine if it was worth killing them. Dosu's eyes almost flipped over backwards when Woojin threw the bag filled with bloodstones. It was a sum of money equivalent to working a 1-star dungeon for 1 month. Bei Dosu confirmed from Woojin's sharp reaction that he was suspicious. He is on guard against us. The fact that he was on guard meant it would be dangerous for them. He didn't know what method they used to kill the numerous monsters, but he was wary of attacking them. He decided to use the fact that his opponent was feeling a sense of danger against he. He thought it was worth trying to attack them. Let's hit them. Bei Dosu gave the sign they had agreed to in advance, then he used his ignition ability. At the same time, Woojin's face was engulfed in flame, and an arrow pierced through Sung-gu's shoulder. Ku-ork. The party members attacked the surprised man even before the flame had formed. The weapons would cut through more easily through human flesh than the tough leather of monsters. Phew. Please don't resent me. I'm all roused like this. Bei Dosu took out the dagger equipped on his belt, then he stabbed it toward the staggering Woojin. Shriek. Even though the flame was impeding Woojin's sight, he was able to grab the hand stabbing at him. Woojin reversed the grip on the hand as he threw him. His strength and speed was so fast that Bei Dosu didn't have the chance to do anything. He was on par with aroused with a physical ability. Phew. That's pretty hot. As the flames faded away, Woojin wiped his face with his hands. He glared at Bei Dosu's party, who was taken aback. Sung-gu had an arrow in his shoulder, and he was looking at Woojin with tear-filled eyes. It was pretty insolent attack. His face was slightly red, and it seemed he had taken some minor burns to the face. However, Woojin was smiling. I guess I should have expected this. Woojin extended both his arms. Pa-pahk. The scattered monsters' corpses exploded, and the scraps of meat flew everywhere. It was a grand sight. If one had a weak constitution, the grotesque sight would make one faint. Resent me. Woojin let out a white smile. Resentment wouldn't change anything. I'll laugh from my heart's content. He had taken on all the resentment from the weak. It would be too cruel for him to deny them that much, since their souls would be imprisoned as they will fall from grace. The skeleton's bone knives didn't show any hesitation or mercy. Ku-ahk. In a flash, the entire party was taken down, then Woojin headed towards Bei Dosu. He was still twitching, so it seemed he was still alive. Wait a moment, let's talk. Are you waiting for your ignition ability school time? Kwajik. Woojin unhesitatingly stabbed the dagger he took from Bei Dosu into his heart. Bei Dosu trembled for a moment before he went limp. Woojin looked at him without showing much interest as he took the Bei Dosu's bag. It was filled with bloodstones they had acquired before they met the hobgoblin. Moreover, Woojin searched Bei Dosu's body, and he took his wallet. He took out all the cash and he stuffed it into his pocket. Before he knew it, Woojin was humming a tune. Unbelievable. In front of Hong Sung-gu, 4 lives were taken in an instant. He tried to cover his mouth with both hands as he tried to stop the words that almost leaked out of his mouth. He was so surprised that it seemed he wasn't conscious of the pain caused by the arrow in his shoulder. Woojin also went through the other party members' pockets, then he mumbled. Anyways, the bastards who tried to stab me in the back will never speak again. Is he saying this for his benefit? Sung-gu's eyes trembled uncontrollably. The people I hate the most are those who try to stab others in the back. Isn't that right, Sung-gu? Woojin whipped his head around, and he looked into Sung-gu's eyes. He was so surprised that he almost wet his pants. Woojin had killed 4 people, but his face was too indifferent. Even when one kills a monster, or even a small animal, one usually feels excitement or guilt. Some kind of emotion should be stirred up, yet Woojin looked like he had pulled weeds out from the side of the road after he killed these people. Sung-gu couldn't sense any change in his emotion. It felt like Woojin was something more than a murderer. His peacefulness drove the terror deep into Hong Sung-gu. Why aren't you answering me? Seoul Station's Necromancer Chapter 16, You Reap What You Sow, 2. TLN, 3rd regular chapter this week. I had some extra time. Cheeky smiley face, please turn off the ad blockers if you can. Thank you Tilda. That is correct. Woojin had emptied the pockets of Bei Dosu's party members, and he had a happy expression. When one looked at his expression as he counted the money, one couldn't find any indication that he was feeling any guilt. Sung-gu couldn't even let out a moan since he was afraid of Woojin. He just stood there. Sung-gu got his feet wet in the one-star dungeons, but this was the first time he saw someone be killed in front of his eyes. Moreover, the killing was done through a person's hands. Woo-jin looked indifferent after he killed these people. He acted as if he had experienced such trifling events numerous times. They carried around a lot of cash. Woo-jin felt great since he obtained an unexpected revenue of $900. At Woo-jin's humming, Sung-gu suddenly started to hiccup. You almost died because of me. No. If it wasn't for Woo-jin, he would have already died when he was left to the monsters. Then why don't you double the amount? What? I saved you twice now. Quote. In total, he wanted 4. Even if he emptied all of his savings account, he wouldn't be able to come up with the $40,000. Sung-gu made an expression as if he was about to cry. Woo-jin took out the arrow embedded in his shoulder with a happy expression. Then Woo-jin gathered the undispersed souls of Bei Dosu and his party members. He used it to heal Sung-gu's wounds. Whoop. Sung-gu felt something enter him, and he gasped as he felt the rapid regeneration. This wound healing couldn't be compared to the one before. The soul extraction was more effective if the soul came from a higher form of life. Of course, a human's soul would be a better source of energy than a monster's soul. Thank you. It was nothing. Everything I do will be charged. Yes. Sung-gu quickly gathered the scattered bloodstones, then he followed behind Woo-jin. When Woo-jin and Sung-gu exited the dungeon, the public service employee's eyes became round. Why are there only 2 of you? They were all taken down by the monsters. At Woo-jin's composed words, the public service employee's eyes narrowed. Then how were you able to gather all the bloodstones? Even if others die, it doesn't mean one should leave all the valuables behind. Right. At Woo-jin's assertive answer, the public employee's eyes narrowed further. When he looked at the situation, he guessed these 2 had stabbed the others in the back to monopolize the profit. However, he had no way of proving it. Coup him. Just sign here before you leave. The bureau may contact you if they decide to hold an investigation on a later date. Woo-jin and Sung-gu signed the entrance ledger that was handed over to them. Then the public employee in charge used a deceased stamp to make a mark next to the names of the roused who had entered with them into the dungeon. If one was near a subway station, there was always a decent bloodstone exchange store nearby. The price of the bloodstones almost never fluctuated. The exchange store took a fixed amount of tax, and it also took the fee one was required to give to the very first person who cleared the dungeon. The rest was deposited into the customer's account. When Woo-jin exited the Shinrim Station's exchange store, his mouth was practically hanging from his ears. I've earned over $13,000 from a single dungeon. The bloodstones were worth $12,300, and he had taken $900 from those bastards' wallets. Originally, this was supposed to be split amongst 8 people. However, the important fact was he had earned $13,000. Moreover, if he included the $4,000 he received from saving Sung-gu's life, then he had a large sum of around $17,000. Next time I'll have to go around the dungeons by myself. If he could make this much money at once like this, he didn't need to worry about the entrance fee. He could clear a dungeon in 1 hour, so it would be much more profitable for him to clear it by himself. Woo-jin wrapped his arm around Sung-gu's neck. Put in your phone number. Yes. When Hong Sung-gu put in his phone number, Woo-jin immediately pressed the call button. After he heard the ringtone come from Sung-gu's pocket, he ended the phone call. Good. You have my account number? Yes. I've definitely written it down. All right. Travel safely. Woo-jin took out $10 from his fat wallet. Sung-gu tried to dissuade him, but he put the bill in Sung-gu's hand. Use it for transportation fee. Thank you. Big brother. Oh yay. Remember, I really hate bastards who stab me in the back. I'll bear that in mind. Sung-gu lowered his head after he watched the happy Woo-jin leave. Sung-gu's face looked as if he had lost his country. He said, I'll be short even after I break open my savings. Hong Sung-gu had become aroused 2 months ago, and he had made a lot of money compared to his 21-year-old peers. Still, it hadn't been easy for him to make money. He had visited the 1-star dungeons every day for the past 2 months. He was able to earn more than $30,000. He had been successful in saving some money, increase the effectiveness of his fireball ability, and decrease his cool time. It was an incredible amount of cash flow compared to a regular person. However, it was money he had earned by putting his life on the line. His stomach churned at the idea that he would have to blow all the money he had struggled to gather. Still, he was pulled out from a certain death, so how could he compare his life to his entire asset? He probably could get a loan for $4,000 to fill the missing amount of money. When he said 4 bills, I hope he didn't mean the big 4 bills. Whether it is 40,000 or 400,000, he intended to give him everything he got. However, he probably didn't have the ability to make $400,000. It was a figure that felt too far away to reach. He hoped Woo-jin didn't put such a high price on his life. Sung-gu headed towards the bank to break open his savings. Woo Sung-hoon was a pretty successful owner of a cell phone store. He had 8 years of experience as a salesman, and he had used the money he had saved to purchase a store. His store was quickly becoming a fixture. There is no customers today. Sung-hoon let out a yawn when the glass door opened and a man quickly ran in. Where's the restroom? Is it here? The man abruptly opened the door behind the counter, then he entered it. Sung-hoon watched this with surprise in his eyes. He probably lost the ability to speak since he was too flustered. What is this? Who is this crazy man? Sung-hoon rose from his seat, and he spoke in an annoyed voice. Mister. That is the storage room. Please come out. Quote. When there weren't any reply or reaction, a vein popped out on Sung-hoon's forehead. He wanted to make sure the man wasn't doing his business inside the room, so he opened the door to the storage room. Ah geez, come out. Sung-hoon's clothes were grabbed by a hand, and he was forcibly dragged into the storage room. Ku dang tang. As he was thrown into the boxes containing products, Sung-hoon knew something was wrong. He's crazy. A crazy man has appeared. Sung-hoon quickly located his opponent. No, his opponent grabbed him first. He was lifted up by his collar, and Sung-hoon struggled as his feet didn't even touch the floor. What kind of strength? Sung-hoon was a big man, but his opponent was stronger than him. Moreover, his denseness was proportional to his strength. Weak, Zeds. Sung-hoon was suddenly struck on his cheek, so he lost the words he was about to say. His ears rang with a buzzing sound. TLN, morp morp, moreover, he couldn't think about anything as if he had become dumber. Weak, Zeds. The opposite cheek was struck, and Woo Sung-hoon's consciousness started to fade. He tasted a coppery taste in his mouth as the inside of his mouth started bleeding. Weak, Zeds. Sung-hoon came to his senses when his cheeks were hit again. He felt an instinctual fear. He used all of will to desperately open his mouth. Help me. Weak, Zark. Instead of an answer, the hand flew towards him. Sung-hoon felt a sense of despair when his numb cheeks were hit again. He has completely lost his mind. If I'm not careful, I might really die. Did he see it on the TV? Indiscriminate violence. Didn't innocent people get beaten for no reason? Or maybe someone sent a killer after him. Now that he thought about it, the opponent probably entered the storage room since it didn't have a CCTV. He was sure this was a planned attack. Hey, you. Yes. Yes, sir. For the first time, the other person spoke instead of using his hand. Sung-hoon reflexively answered him. Weak, quartering. The man in question once again roughly threw Sung-hoon against the wall. Ooh orc. Get up. Attention. Yes, sir. It had been a long time since he was in the military, but his survival instinct made it all come back. If he let out even a squeak, it felt like he would be beaten to death. The man in question was emitting such an atmosphere. His pose made him look like a mafia boss, who was in charge of several hundred underlings. I hate bastards who hit me in the back of my head. TLN, figure of speech about betrayal. Moreover, I hate those who dare to scam me. Quote. They hadn't even met before, so how could he have hit him in the back of the head? Sung-hoon was too scared to make an expression showing his innocence. Woojin glanced at him. You're not going to answer me. I'm sorry. He really wanted to know what he had done wrong. Phew, alright. Think of this as your lucky day. Quote. If this was the Alphan planet, I probably would have killed you immediately. Quote. Sung-hoon didn't know how the man could say he had lucked out in this situation. Be thankful you were born in Korea. Yes, sir, long live the Republic of Korea. Don't overdo it. Yes, sir. He was in a country with human rights. He had to follow the laws and morality of this place, so he couldn't kill this man for such a transgression. Woojin decided to end this. Took. TLN, SFX of phone hitting the floor. The cell phone he threw fell right in front of Sung-hoon's foot. You sold me this newest phone yesterday. Quote. Fuck. Sung-hoon finally remembered who this man was. He looked like a guy recently arrived from the boondocks, and he had sold him a handphone that was worth less than $10 for $90. He had felt so good about that sale that he even remembered the guy's name. The pushover from yesterday is this bastard. How could a person change so much? The yesterday's pushover came back today as the Grim Reaper. Moreover, it seemed he was aroused. If he knew this person was aroused, he wouldn't have tried such a clumsy scam. I bought the newest phone. Quote. However, when I went home, I was told it was an old one. That is. Was there an error on your part? This was an extreme situation where his life may be on the line, so he started quickly turning the wheels in his thoughts. Woo Sung-jin had 8 years of experience as a salesperson, so of course, he knew what was Woojin's intent. I must have made a mistake. I knew that was the case. Bullshit. You beat up a person like this because of a mistake. Give me another one. What kind of model? How would I know? You choose it for me. Quote. Give me the most expensive one. Quote. Woo Sung-hoon thought hard on it. However, he eventually had no choice, but to take out the one smartphone he had left in stock. Asterisk. Woojin had a happy face as he exited the cell phone store. Hoo. The world has become so much better. It didn't even take a second before the map opened. The navigation searched for his destination, then at the same time, it started giving him directions. The internet was very fast, and everything was to his satisfaction. Haha. The latest phones are the best. Woojin opened his address book. Mother, do Jaemin, real Jaemin, 4. That guy transferred it correctly. For a person in the modern age, the address book was a list of one's human connections. Woojin smiled as he looked at the list of phone numbers. He told the phone salesman that he would be back again. He ordered the salesman, Woo Sung-hoon, then to his phone number, then Woo-jin warned him not to change his phone number. Woo-jin called his mother to find out the address of the restaurant she was working at. It wasn't too far from his house. Woo-jin's steps was light as he returned to his house. Hoo. After I save a little bit more, we'll have an to move. Before all of that, I should probably make mother quit her job. Woo-jin was a bit spiteful towards her workplace, but it was the first time he would be visiting her workplace. Therefore, he bought a box of beverage. Sungmi's restaurant. I think she said it was here. Woo-jin had found the restaurant at around 4 o'clock. Even though it should be the idle hours, the small restaurant was half full. Welcome. When the sound of the door opening was heard at the counter, the young lady reflexively gave a greeting with her eyes still glued to the cell phone. Pew pew. P-burr, pew pew pew. Sungmi was in the midst of playing a game on her phone. She regretfully ended the game, then she raised her head. How many? She was going to greet the customer out of reflex when Sungmi's eyes became round. He had a robust body, and he had wide shoulders that went well with his tall frame. He wasn't handsome yet, he had a good-looking face. He had a heavy atmosphere around him. He was a beauty of corruption with a dark aura around him. However, there was something about his face. Big brother Woo-jin. Why are you here, Sungmi? Woo-jin thought about the restaurant's name, and he was easily able to infer what that meant. My mother works at your restaurant. Your mother? I'm talking about Mrs. Lee Soo-young. The kitchen lady. Sungmi's surprised eyes froze. The kitchen lady was Woo-jin's mother. Also, what happened to you, big brother? 5 years ago, I'm sure. Woo-jin grinned. Come back home, TLN, he spoke broken English in Korean. I'll leave it alone. A sigh leaked out of Sungmi's mouth. Her first love, who disappeared 5 years ago, had returned. Seoul Station's Necromancer Chapter 17, Their Situation. TLN, this will count towards next week's regular chapter. Alqueenus will be out next either tomorrow or Monday. Please turn off the ad blockers if you can. Thank you Tilda. A tiring battle ensued. Please quit. I can't quit. You don't have to earn any money. I'm making a lot of money now. This is the money I earned in half a day. Woo-jin opened his bank app, then he showed his mother his account statement. However, she wouldn't budge an inch. You came back after 5 years, yet how could a mother thrust you back into such a deadly situation? Then do you want me to continue to live by receiving allowance from you? Do you want me to stay unemployed for the rest of my life, and live off the money you struggle to earn? Woo-jin hit his chest as if he was frustrated. I'll make a lot of money. I'll make enough that mother won't have to worry about money ever again. Mother and Sua is my responsibility now. I've returned, so I'm the head of this family. Woo-jin. You. His mother couldn't say anything. She just let her tears flow. The word, head of the family, swelled around her head. Her oldest son had gone missing and even her husband had died. The daughter she had late in life was only 2 years old, and she had always been a stay-at-home mom. Yet she had to live on with such a heavy burden. It wasn't apt to say she had lived, but she had just held out. Woo-jin tightly hugged his mother as a river of tears flowed out of her. Before the tear-filled mother and son could have a conversation, the owner of the restaurant gave a fake cough. She was Sungmi's mother, Kim Soonok. If it was up to her, she would have yelled at them for making a spectacle at someone else's store. However, her daughter Sungmi was giving her a signal. So she looked on without doing anything. I don't want to say something like this, but how can you just quit your job like this? I know what your situation is like, but you should have a conscience. You know our store is busy, so work until I can hire someone. Woo-jin's face stiffened at Kim Soonok's words. He wanted his mother to immediately quit this arduous kitchen work, but his mother's answer was faster than his. Yes. Even if I do quit, a responsible person can't act that way. This isn't about money, so don't say anything. You. Then please quit this place within a week. Sua needs mother more than me. She was only a 7-year-old preschooler. She had always felt very sorry towards Sua, so his sister might have been the straw that broke the camel's back. Husband. Woo-jin. She didn't know what skills he had acquired, but her son had suddenly showed up after 5 years. He said he would go away to prepare for the school qualification exam, but he came back after he earned a lot of money. For someone who worked at a restaurant, the money was quite the windfall. Her tears wouldn't stop falling as she thought about her past arduous days. Mother. Hoo-hook. This is so sad. Sungmi also started crying, so Kim Soonok passed her a handkerchief. She had never seen her daughter act this way, so she was taken aback. Even though Sungmi was her daughter, she wasn't a kind girl, and she could be a bit of a bitch. Normally, her daughter would call the kitchen lady auntie, then she would treat her with a bad temper. For some reason, her daughter was acting like a chaste and modest woman today. After crying for a long while, Lee Soo-gyong reined in her emotions, then she started to plead towards her boss, Kim Soonok. Do you think I could get off work early today? If she doesn't let you off, then just quit. At Woo-jin's rejoinder, Kim Soonok made a sound of indecision. However, in the end, she had no choice but to allow it. It made a big difference for a single person to be missing from a busy restaurant, but she couldn't do anything about it. It would be a bigger trouble if she didn't show up starting tomorrow. Yes, mother. Please go in first. Have a nice time with big brother Woo-jin. Oh, okay, Ms. Sungmi. Lee Soo-young was bewildered by the restaurant owner's daughter Seungmi. She was responding in an amiable way. Big brother. Be safe. I'll see you again next time. Oh yeah. Here is my phone number. Park Seungmi snatched Woojin's phone away as if she was stealing it. Then she put in her number to call her phone. Hey. Have a nice day, mother. After receiving her goodbye, Woojin and Lee Soo-young left the restaurant. Soon the dinner crowd will rush in, but she didn't feel like working on a day like this. Where are we going, Mom? Woojin was dragged by Lee Soo-young's hand towards a different direction from their house. You'll know once you get there. Anyways, what kind of relationship do you have with Ms. Seungmi? Her. She used to be my junior in school. Why? His mother didn't speak for a long time, then she suddenly stopped walking. She turned around to look straight at Woojin, and he could see traces of worry on her face. I don't plan on involving myself in my son's love life, but if you bring a bitch like her, mother will be against it. Woojin smirked at his mother's words. I don't have any interest in her. I was wondering what you wanted to say to me. The girl had given him a lot of stuff during Valentine's Day, but for him, 20 years had already passed. The only thing he remembered was her face. At the time, he didn't have any feelings toward her, so he doubted he would develop any feelings for her now. Moreover, he could imagine how she had treated his mother by her reaction. So he was disgusted by her. Where are we going? You'll know once we arrive there. Lee Soo-young took her son, Kang Woojin, to a newly built apartment not too far from their home. The Hammer Guild built their headquarters in the devastated region, and they had made a lot of progress there. However, a massive park was also built to one side. Lee Soo-young made her son buy a bottle of alcohol from a convenience store near the park's entrance. Then she bought a single chrysanthemum flower from the flower shop. They walked through a secluded path inside the park, and they arrived in front of a large monument located at the center of the park. Less than Sardang Station's casualty monument greater than. Several 100,000 people died during the dungeon shock. A lot more people died in the subsequent dungeon breaks, but if one had to pick the day when the most deaths had occurred, it was the day of the dungeon shock. Woojin had disappeared on that day. On that day, everyone who had used the subway system had died. A lot of parks were built near the station since it was destroyed by the subsequent dungeon breaks. Woojin wordlessly placed the flower in front of the monument, then he poured out the alcohol. He kowtowed with a heavy heart. Lee Soo-young could only silently watch him as she shed her tears. Husband. Our Woojin has returned. Our Woojin. Woojin finished his kowtow, then he hugged his mother tightly. His mother couldn't control her emotions, so she cried endlessly. Father. Woojin started thinking about his father, and his emotions turned melancholy. He hadn't had the time to spare since his mother had been struggling by herself, but he hadn't forgotten about his father. Woojin missed his father. However, the ache he felt towards his mother and Suo was larger. Maybe, the past 20 years had desensitized Woojin from death. Please tell me now. What do you mean? Where and what have you been up to during that time? Quote. When he saw his mother's earnest face, Woojin struggled for a long time, but he decided to tell her the truth. However, he was mindful of the shock his mother would receive, so he tried to downplay the truth. He had overcome countless near-death experiences, and his hands snatched away countless lives as he struggled fiercely to live. There had been countless people afraid of him, and their gazes had been filled with fear. He didn't want his mother to look at him like that. I think it was caused by the dungeon shock. I was summoned to a planet named Alphen. If everything was like before, she wouldn't have believed him. However, the world had gone through a change, and the impossible had become possible. Alright. What did you do over there? How should he explain this? Woojin thought about it, and he opened his mouth after he ordered his thoughts. It wasn't too dangerous. It was like a game. I leveled up some, then I diligently hunted. I ordered around my summoned beings and I even participated in wars. However, mother shouldn't worry too much about it. I used my summoned beings, so I just watched from far away. Quote. At Woojin's words, his mother's expression stiffened. High ego. TLN, SFX, I guess it is like saying OMG, I was so worried about you, but you came back after playing some game. That's not it. Seoul Station's Necromancer Chapter 18, Their Circumstances, 2. TLN, I'm trying to take advantage of the long weekend. As some readers suggested, I changed Big Brother to Hyung, Ober etc. Please turn off the ad blockers if you're able to. Thanks Tilda. I go. You scoundrel. Mother worried about you so much. As Woojin's back was being slapped, he pondered about what to do. Should he just tell her the truth? Hey go. You spent 5 years playing a game like an addict, then you came back. Haha. That wasn't it at all. Still, I'm thankful you returned in good health. Woojin thought about telling her a little bit more of the truth to resolve the misunderstanding, but he abandoned that idea. Who cares if she believed this or that? I've returned home, and his mother was happy. The tears flowing from his mother didn't have any resentment in it. If she held any resentment, it was towards the inhospitable years that had passed them by. The hand that was hitting him started losing its strength, and her teardrops became thicker. Woojin cried with her. He cried endlessly as he tried to shed the past 20 years. Asterisk. Sua's eyes turned round as she asked a question. Huh. Why is mother's eyes so red? Did you cry? No. Why would mother cry? No. You did cry. I know why mother cried. Why? You're happy since mother will also be able to eat beef. Isn't that right? Huh. Ho ho. You rascal. That's right. I'm so happy that your Oba bought us beef, so tears came out. He could see a glint of terror on his mother's eyes. It wasn't from sadness. It was a teardrop of happiness. Woojin grinned slyly. After they left the park, Woojin took Sua to a meat grilling restaurant. It was rumored to be the best one in the neighborhood. The price was too expensive, so they had never been to the store before. Cheek. The beef made a delicious sound as Woojin cooked it, and he placed it on Sua's dish. While Sua was chewing on her food, she picked up a piece of meat, and she placed it on her mother's dish. Mom, eat this. It's really delicious. Okay. Since Sua gave it to me, it is more delicious. His mother ate a piece of meat, then she made a happy smile. Sua grinned as she looked at Woojin. I really like it since Opa came. Really? Do you like Opa since I bought you beef? Yeah. I like it a lot. Minsu always make fun of me. He says he always eat a lot of meat. Minsu. He is the richest in our class. That is why he brags about what he eats every day when he comes to preschool. He has a lot of toys. His father is aroused, so he is really rich. Ha. Is that so? Don't be jealous of that. If Sua wants something then just tell Opa. I'll buy it all for you. Opa is also aroused. TLN, asterisk cough asterisk phrasing. Maybe I should have gone for enlightened as someone suggested. Wow. Really? Opa is the best. I like Opa. Sua laughed merrily, but his mother looked like she hadn't let go of her worries. I'm still not sure you should do it. I'll be alright. I'm not that weak. Moreover, I won't do something that is too dangerous, so you don't have to worry about it. Opa is in danger. No. Opa isn't in danger. As he started to seriously cook some more meat, Woojin took a bottle of soju, and he poured it into his mother's glass. As if she was still sensitive to such actions, her eyes started to water. My son, who was in his 3rd year in high school, has come back as an adult. You're able to drink alcohol with your mother. I guess so, but this is the first time I'm having soju. Ha! This is the first time my son has drunk soju. You have to learn how to drink alcohol from an adult. Hurry up and take this glass. This was the first time he had soju, but he had drunk a lot of other alcohol. Woojin took the soju cup with a pounding heart. GGOL goal. Your father would have been proud if he saw you. Our son had already grown into an adult. You could drink alcohol with me, and he also bought his meat. When they talked about his father, he became melancholy, but it couldn't even be compared to his mother's sadness. Woojin drank the entire cup of soju. There was a bite to it. It was quite good, but he was starting to feel the effect of the alcohol. There was a bitter aftertaste, and it was quite delicious. This is pretty good. He didn't know about the other stuff, but the taste of alcohol here was preferable to the ones at the planet Alphen. As time passes, he'll look fondly back at his experiences, but he couldn't do that yet. He had escaped that hellhole, and he was very happy to be with his family now. Let us be happy, mother. Yes, my son. Me too, me too. In her ignorance, Sua pushed her cup forward, but he poured her some soda. Then they made a toast. Asterisk. His mother seemed to be drunk as she kept thanking him. He took the happily smiling Sua and his mother back home before he headed out again. He had withdrawn money from an ATM as they walked the street, and he placed $1,000 on top of the kitchen table. He wanted to give her all the money he had earned, but he needed it for seed money. He needed a certain amount of money to pay for the entrance fee for the higher-ranked dungeons. It would allow him to quickly make money. Woojin wanted to move to a decent house soon. Ha! This is great. Woojin accompanied his mother and Sua home. Then he decided to walk the night street. It was 7 o'clock. He'd taken Sua to an early dinner, so it was still quite early. This was the first time he drank soju, and the taste continued to linger. He wanted to drink more, but he didn't want to get drunk by himself. 20 years had passed, so instead of thinking about his close friends' faces, the first face that came to mind was Do Jae-min's face. That guy. I have to repay his money. He owed a lot of things to him. Woojin always settled his favors and grudges. He repaid goodwill, and he took revenge on those he had a grudge against. Jae-min was a big help in learning about the changed earth. Woojin visited a still-open department store, and he entered to buy some presents. He wandered around in his threadbare clothes, and he smelled of alcohol. Even seeing him like this, the kind sales clerk helped him out. He went towards the cosmetic counter, and with the recommendation from the clerk, he purchased something a high school boy could use. He spent a good amount of money, but he didn't regret it. While he carried the present, Woojin bought a whole chicken at a fried chicken restaurant. He bought a bottle of soju at the convenience store, then he headed towards Jae-min's house. There was no response as he pressed on the doorbell, so he opened the panel to the door lock mechanism. D. That bastard, he already changed his passcode. Woojin could have immediately called Jae-min, but it was about time for Jae-min to come home from his tutoring school. So he just waited. Jae-min flinched in surprise when he saw Woojin standing in front of his front door. You are back. Hi, Hyung. You came. That's right. Let's eat some chicken together. Jaemin stealthily glanced towards Woojin. He covered his finger with his other hand before he opened the front door. D-ro-ri. Woojin acted naturally as he spread the chicken and plates on top of the kitchen desk. Bring some glasses. Ah, wait a moment. As soon as he took off his backpack, Jaemin brought back some cups. He felt uncomfortable since Woojin came to his house every night, but his mouth watered when he thought about the chicken. Jaemin was at an age where he liked to eat. Jaemin tried to pour cola into his cup, but Woojin stopped him. Hey, you should have a cup. What? Hyang. I'm only a high school student. Soup. You can have whatever Hyang gives you. Shush, should I? Woojin filled Jaemin's cup with soju, and he also filled his cup to the brim with soju. They didn't have a soju glass, so they poured it into cups. The soju bottle emptied just from filling 2 cups. Okay, let's drink. Yes. Woojin emptied the cup in a refreshing manner, and he bit into a chicken leg. Jaemin awkwardly turned his head, and he took a sip. Then his face scrunched up. KKKKKK. Bitter. It was bitter. Why would anyone drink something like this? Jaemin put a chicken wing in his mouth as he asked a question. Was your visit to the dungeons successful? Of course. Hey, I got you a present. Jaemin opened the shopping bag with a confused face. When he opened it, he saw a bottle of cologne. When he saw the brand, it was a very pricey item. Hi, Hyang. Stop being surprised, you little rascal. This is the money I borrowed from you. Woojin took out $500 from his wallet. Jaemin's eyes became round. This is too much. You only have to give me what you borrowed. No. To tell you the truth, I don't want it. Hyang has already done too much for me. Yes, a person should repay kindness. Woojin nodded his head with a satisfied expression. So, is the way you changed the house's passcode? That is. Woojin grinned when he saw the flustered Jaemin. The rest is rent fee on top of the borrowed money. Ah, does this mean he wants to continue to stay here? Jaemin couldn't believe his ears. Seoul Station's Necromancer Chapter 19, Justifiable Misunderstanding. Chapter 19 Justifiable Misunderstanding. TLN, short chapter, and it'll probably be the last regular chapter of this week. Next week will be Dragon Macon, lol. I'll try to get a 3rd chapter out next week of SSN so we move closer to the dungeon scenes. Please turn off the ad blockers if you're able to. Thanks Tilda. Hyang. Didn't you meet your mother? Shit. My house is too small. I'll inconvenience you until I buy a house. Even though the price of land in Seoul had dropped, it was still an unthinkable amount of money for a normal person like Jaemin. He is asking to live here, and mooch off of him until he could buy a house. Jaemin had a complicated expression. Woojin cackled as he looked at Jaemin. It won't take long for me to leave, so don't worry about it. Hyang made 1,300 today. Moreover, I'll get an additional 400 soon. That isn't it. My Nuna comes here on the weekends. TLN, male to older sister equals Nuna, female to older sister equals Ani. Ah, is that so? I'll call her tomorrow. Oh yay. Does Hyung know my Nuna? My Nuna recognized Hyung's name. Ah, what's your Nuna's name? Her name is Do Jiwon. Woojin thought about the name, Do Jiwon, and his eyes became wide when it came to him. Do Jiwon. The 3rd class Jun Ji-hyun. TLN, Google. If you want to know who she resembles. She's my sister, so it's a little bit weird to talk about her like this. However, she used to be called that. Haha. You are Jiwon's little brother. Woojin looked over Do Jaemin, and he nodded his head. He thought this guy looked handsome, and now he found out Do Jiwon was his Nuna. They must have been born with superior genes as both siblings had good looks. It had been 20 years, but Woojin still remembered Do Jiwon. She used to be famous for being the prettiest in the entire school. Woojin had also had a crush on Jiwon, but he had been too shy. If he met her right now, he would have. Where does your Nuna live for her only visit on the weekends? She's at a factory. What? A factory? Do Jiwon is. If she needed money then she should have become a celebrity instead. Woojin couldn't imagine Jiwon in a factory setting, so he turned his head in confusion. Jaemin replied with a slightly dark face. There was an incident. Anyways, Hyung switched your handphone. Ah. I swapped it on the way back. Wow. This is a really expensive one. Can I touch it once? Is that so? Is it a good one? Hull. This is a crazy red. Crazy red. It uses bloodstone technology, so it is really expensive. Hyung must have made a lot of money. Bloodstones was a new material with an enormous amount of energy within it. After the end of a 5-year research, the technology was adopted for use, and it was slowly being used in actual objects now. The battery technology using the bloodstones were a hot issue in the IT market. He exchanged it for free. What? This was free. Well, it was an event. An event. It was a once-in-a-lifetime even where the salesman's life was on the line. Hull. You were lucky. This is really expensive. It seemed the phone salesman had a conscience. Woojin let go of the little ball of grudge he held against him. Jaemin was more excited than the owner of the phone. He spent a while explaining to him about the new functions when a message came. DDRING. Jaemin looked at the line on top of the screen, and his eyes widened when he read the content. Less than XX bank greater than 9, 13, 21 13. Deposit 40,000. Total 51,230. XX bank Hong Sunggu. Ha! How many zeros are there? Jaemin looked at the figure, then he looked at Woojin. It said he was a rank F on his roused card, yet he was able to earn $13,000 in one day, and now he earned an additional $40,000. Jaemin couldn't help but look at Woojin in a different light. Hi, Hyung. You are very capable. Woojin snatched his handphone back, and he frowned. That bastard. I told us to send 4 bills. Woojin immediately gave him a call. The amount is getting on my nerve. It is getting on my nerve. Before the single ring could pass, Sunggo picked up his phone. Hello, Hyung. Did you check the deposit? Hey, asshole. Do you think I'm a beggar? Didn't I tell you to send just 4 bills? What is this? Of course. When you said 4 bills, you meant the 4 bills. As if he had put his hand over the receiver, the sound was muffled. However, Woojin had a sensitive hearing, so he frowned when he heard it. What are you saying? Hi, Hyung Nim. I want to talk to you face to face. Please tell me your address. What? Why do you want to find me? I'll explain it once I get there. Where are you, Hyung Nim? Sunggu's voice sounded desperate, so Woojin gave him the address in confusion. There is a large cafe called Angle Angel near there. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Sunggu hurriedly ended the call. At Sunggu's reaction, Woojin stared at his handphone. That bastard. What's up with him? If Sunggu had just told him his account number, he would have returned the $36,000, so why does he want to meet up? Since we are out of alcohol, I'll briefly head out to buy some. Meanwhile, you eat the chicken. Yes, Hyung. Change the front door's password to the original one. Yes. Woojin decided he would buy more of the depleted soju, then he would meet Sunggu and give him back his money. Jaemin was left alone, and he took another sip of the soju. He frowned. KKKKK. Why do people drink this? He popped open a cola, then he washed the flavor out of his mouth. Then he started playing with his handphone out of boredom. This should be expensive. Jaemin checked the cologne's brand, and his mouth dropped open when he searched for the model. $200. The price was too high for a high school student to use it without feeling a sense of burden. Moreover, he rarely used cologne. Maybe, if he smoked, then he would have. I guess Hyung spends based on his emotions. He is spending recklessly since he making money. His mood became restless when he saw the $500 given to him by Woojin. His Nuna was probably working hard at the factory right now, but her annual income was less than the $53,000 Woojin made in a single day. Jaemin was bored waiting for Woojin to return, so he accessed an online community he frequented. Then he wrote a post. Brothers. I got a perfume for a present. About 3 days ago, I met an uncle by coincidence, and I let him sleep in my rented room for a day. He bought me a cologne and he also gave me $500. Isn't it a real windfall? Currently, I'm eating chicken and alcohol. Hyung went out to buy more alcohol since we are out. He has a lot of money. TLN, just Google it if you don't know, let me boast about my present. Jaemin uploaded a picture of the cologne as proof, then he waited for the reaction from other people. DD ring. The replies were explosive. TLN, they're speaking in message board style. Sometimes they aren't even talking in full sentences. Opening square bracket question mark dot. Nim. Be careful of your backside. TLN, XXX Nim. It is an honorific, but shortened to Nim here. Perfume, rented room, success. Question mark. Today real shared room. Question mark. Opening square bracket question mark. This Hyung will move to your next door neighborhood. He isn't getting alcohol. He probably went to get condoms. Stupid. He won't get pregnant, so why buy condoms? What? Stupid. Then enema. Question mark opening square bracket question mark. He said enema. Nim, it isn't too late. Throw away your rented room, and guard your behind. So who will be the bottom? Opening square bracket question mark. The person who paid will be the top. Congratulations on your anal's grand opening. What is anal? Your asshole, you stupid mofo. Request but. Monitor ready in front. Jaemin frowned. TSK. If they're jealous, then they should just say so. Why do a gay ad-lib? Jaemin continued to read the posts being posted, and he glanced at the front door. He wouldn't do that. He won't. The delicious chicken suddenly tasted like he was chewing on rubber. Is he deluding himself? He probably won't. Seoul Station's Necromancer Chapter 20, Justified Misunderstanding, 2. TLN, I'll have a chapter of Dragon Maiden or LOL out on Sunday. Please turn off the ad blockers if you're able to. Hong Songbu let out a sigh after he ended the phone call. The 4 bills was actually $400,000. It's no wonder why, since he thought $20,000 was a bit cheap for saving someone's life. He really had been underestimating the price of his life too much. Even someone like me is worth $200,000. He had been saved twice, so it was 4 bills. It was $400,000. This isn't how I should be spending my time. Sung-gu let out a sigh. It had been only 2 months since he had become aroused. He had worked tirelessly during that time, but he had been only earned around $30,000. Even that wasn't enough, so he had to borrow money from all around. How was he suddenly going to come up with a large sum of $360,000? I guess this is the only way. He had prepared this just in case. Sung-gu gathered a bundle of documents, then he went outside to catch a taxi. When he arrived near the Sedang station, he hurriedly entered a large cafe named Angel. He looked around, and he was able to find Woojin sitting near a corner. Hyung-him. How are you doing? The two of them had left the dungeon, and they had went their own ways around lunch. This occurred only a couple hours ago, so why was he asking how he was doing? You came. So, why did you insist on coming here yourself? It was the right thing for me to do to come here. That's all right. Just leave after you give me your account number. Ha-ork. Sung-gu's face turned pale from fright. Is he trying to return his money to him? Doesn't that mean he didn't need his money, and Woojin wanted to kill him? Sung-gu thought about how Woojin looked as he killed Bae Do-soo and his party members without any hesitation. It happened only a couple hours ago, so he was still shocked by that event. Sung-gu immediately got on his knees. Hyung-nim. Please spare my life. Why are you being like this? I promise I'll pay back all the money I am short on. Just give me a little bit more time. Sung-gu's reaction drew the attention from the people in the surrounding. What's going on? Is he a gangster? It looks like he took out a private loan. TSK. He must have took out a private loan, then he must have used it all. Woojin frowned when he heard the murmurs coming from the surround people. What was he trying to accomplish by gaining the attention of his surrounding? Woojin's voice was filled with irritation. If you don't want to die, then why don't you have a seat? Yes, sir. Sung-gu immediately sat across Woojin. Hyung-nim. I have no way of gathering $400,000 right now. If you give me some time, I promise I'll come through. $400,000. Yes, sir. Ha. Woojin leaned back against his chair as he sighed. His fingers rhythmically beat against the armrests. DDOK. Sung-gu swallowed dryly to the beat. Woojin frowned at Sung-gu, who sat there like a dog wanting to poop. He had wanted $4,000, so he asked Sung-gu to send 4 bills. However, he must have misunderstood it as $40,000. If that wasn't enough, he had further misunderstood, and now he was under the impression that he owed Woojin $400,000 now. Kids these days think in large scales. How could someone misunderstand one bill as $10,000 or $100,000? It seemed he had thoroughly misunderstood his situation. If he was under a misunderstanding, then of course he would. How long do you want me to wait for you? Have to take advantage of the misunderstanding. Sung-gu spoke rapidly. He spoke so fast that one would think he had a talent for talking. Please look here. Woojin's forehead furrowed when he picked up the paper documents pushed forward by Sung-gu. Less than improvement of the roused ability and the corresponding income report, greater than. When his ability manifested, Sung-gu had recorded how much he had earned on the first day he became aroused. As he became familiar with his ability slowly evolved, and his income had increased steadily. He even made a graph to accompany the numbers. At the bottom, he even wrote down the dungeons he had attempted, and there was a detailed count on how many monsters he had faced. This was basically Sung-gu's own portfolio. I earned $30,000 during the 2 months. From here on out, my income will continue to increase, and I will be able to obtain the rest of the money soon. How long? I guarantee I will have it within 25 months. Isn't it too long? At Woojin's pessimistic words, Sung-gu replied quickly. When did he become so deft at wheeling and dealing? It felt like he had awoken to another Taken when facing with a situation where his life was on the line. This is why I thought of a second method. Less than dungeon attack business plan, greater than. Woojin frowned as he threw the documents on the table. Why don't we just talk? Sung-gu immediately flapped his tongue. With Hyung-nim's abilities, you will be able to attack a higher dungeon than the 1-star and 2-star dungeons. Moreover, you will be able to earn much more revenue per dungeon attack. If you form a party with me, I'll point out the highly profitable dungeons, and I'll be able to repay the $400,000 in no time. From what Sung-gu observed, Woojin was most definitely not a rank F on his roused rankings. He was capable of soloing a 2-star dungeon, so how could he be a rank F? Anyways, the profit from the higher ranked dungeons were fundamentally on a different level. One could earn $400,000 in no time. For Sung-gu, this would be the best method for him. He wouldn't dare attempt a high-ranked dungeon by himself, but it was possible with Woojin by his side. He just had one problem he had to resolve. Does that mean you want to comfortably mooch off of me? No. This is why I thought up a third plan. Sung-gu started laying out his third plan as if nothing had happened. During that period, I will work as Hyung-nim's manager. Manager? Yes. All roused with a slightly higher rank travels with one. There is even a separate supporting department for them at the guilds. The manager takes care of duties like selecting the dungeons, making reservations, selling the bloodstones and more. The manager even drives the roused around. So they are basically servants. He is speaking the truth, but why do I have such an unpleasant feeling? Your analysis is correct, Hyung-nim. Woojin had an amused expression when he heard Sung-gu's words. Managers basically did the same work as a celebrity's manger. It wasn't a bad proposal for Woo Jin. Since you don't have the money, you want to work it off with your body. Ah, he was correct. You were spot on, Hyung Nim. Woo Jin thought for a moment before he opened his mouth. Alright. For how long? Hyung Nim should decide. 1 year. I would feel a little bit bad if you worked for free, so I'll give you a little bit of money on the side. Sung-gu abruptly stood up from his seat. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hyung Nim. Ah-oo. No, I'm the one who should be thanking you. He could have just taken back the $36,000 yet he wanted to live the life of a servant. Asterisk. Jae-min woke up with a burning thirst in his throat. Ooh ork. He looked around his surrounding with a dizzy head. He was on his bed. Bits of his memories started to piece itself together, and his memories slowly came back to him. He had waited a long time for Woo Jin, who had gone out to buy more alcohol. He started taking sips from his soju cup, and he had fallen asleep on the table. So, why was he in his bed? Huck. He still had his shirt on. Jae-min hurriedly peeked underneath his blanket. He still had his pants on. He unnecessarily started touching his butt, but he didn't feel any pain. Phew. Thank you. Our Father, who art in heaven. Ah. When his nervousness melted away, he tried to get up since he had to pee. This was when he saw Woo Jin lying on top of a blanket placed on the floor. He saw 2 bottles of soju on the desk, so it seemed he had fallen asleep after drinking by himself. I guess he really is a kind Hyung. Jae-min felt relieved. As he was about to head towards the restroom, Woo Jin let out a moan. Ooh. Woo Jin had curled up, and his body was shaking. Is he sick? Jae-min stretched out his hand to touch the curled up Woo Jin. Before his hand could make contact, he felt a stinging shock on his hand. AHT. That stings. Jae-min was so surprised that he sat back down on his bed. Maybe it was the shock, but he started seeing a hallucination. Grey objects were wrapped around Woo Jin, and they were slowly swimming around him. Some were black, but none of them had a defined form. Jae-min's eyes were out of focus, and he could only look on dumbly. Ghost. A sprite. Or a hallucination. He felt a thick hatred and resentment towards life. No, it was the source of evil. Instinctual fear. Jae-min's dilated eyes flipped into his head, and he fainted onto his bed. Ooh. Woo Jin let out a moan, and his body was drenched in cold sweat. His face was screwed up as if he was in pain. It looked as if he was possessed by an evil spirit. Necromancer. He who opposed the laws of nature. He who denies death. Eventually, he who become tormented by death's curse. Woo Jin continued to moan.